Hey everyone, welcome back to Week Ahead Astrology Breakdown. I'm Matthew Oliver with Stillwater Alchemy, and I saw The Little Mermaid, the live action in theaters this past weekend, and it was phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend it. The one thing I want to bring up is just the astrology of Halle Bailey, who is the lead playing Ariel, and how her chart plays so well into the archetype of the Little Mermaid. Because even if we just look at the Little Mermaid and we guess her astrology, I would guess that Ariel, the Little Mermaid, would be a Gemini rising. Of course, there's a duality of being mermaid and human, having both of those energies inside her that she wants to explore. And there's a natural curiosity towards Ariel of wanting to explore, wanting to have more answers, being connected to all these different entities and energies and life forces. And then naturally, we would give her, I think, a Pisces sun. And then I would give Ariel an Aries moon. Helps to explain the red hair. She's also very emotionally charged and a little bit reckless and impulsive. She doesn't listen to her father, her authority figure, like the rest of her sisters and the rest of the underwater kingdom. She also, when she gets like rejected or hurt by her father, she instantly acts like goes to Ursula. She gets very excited when she's around Eric. I just feel like these are all Aries moon traits. But then the Piscean, her voice, her creativity, her romantic sensual side, all these things. So if we look at Halle Bailey's chart, Halle is an Aries sun. She has her Mercury and Venus in the sign of Pisces. Halle's moon is in Capricorn, which I think is even an interesting duality of like having a strict authority figure in the movie with King Triton. And there's different sites that give Halle either a Cancer rising or a Gemini rising. It's more towards the Gemini rising side of things, which would make Mercury Halle's chart ruler. And Halle has Mercury conjunct Venus in Pisces, which helps to explain her beautiful voice. And if she's a Gemini rising, that puts Pisces in Halle's 10th whole sign house, where we find fame and honor. And then the Little Mermaid is like the most Piscean thing ever. So I think it's a beautiful reminder that you can't miss out on opportunities that are meant for you, number one. Number two, when you can lean into the astrology of your own chart, it can help to show you what things are naturally going to be easier, what blessings you can bring forward a lot easier, or just a natural expression of the talents and gifts that you already have. And even just Halle being an Aries, she was the first person auditioned for the role of Ariel. And everyone on that production team said that it was so clear, it was so obvious that it was her. She raised the bar so high, Aries, that it just had to be her. Oh, exactly. So it's just a fun little tip that I wanted to share. And the last thing I wanted to promote before we hop into the week ahead is that my 2023 astrology guide, I've now reduced further to be on sale because we're basically halfway through the year, which is wild. So if you have not yet had a chance to take a look at that, it's beautiful. I think it's like 90 plus pages. I go through every single month, highlight every single transit that's going on that's noteworthy. There are auspicious dates outlined for every single month, affirmations for every single month. I go through every lunation, every retrograde, things that you can watch out for. And then at the end of each month is a manifestation, a manifesto where you can make notes. And even if you're like, well, there's only 6 months left of the year, how is that going to be beneficial? You can use as a retrospective to go back over the first few months. And even for those of you that already have the 2023 astrology guide, you can go back and see, oh yeah, these things happened over the past few months, and link it with the astrology. So you can start to learn more about how these transits affect you in your life with your specific natal chart. Because I get the feedback a lot of times from like friends or clients, like, I wish I knew more, or I feel like I should study this more. And it really is, in my opinion, a devotion. It's like learning any language. If you take a class or learn it for a year and then you let go of it, it'll just be harder to be fluent in that language. Not saying that it's not possible. It just means if you can study it a little bit each day, it'll be easier to understand. And honestly, I have a lot of clients and friends that are like, oh yeah, so I think Leo's in my 6th house, which means this. I'm like, yes, exactly. So I get excited when people even just know the houses, because that is a huge boon and blessing. So let's start off the week, shall we? Monday, June 12th, 9 a.m. Pacific. So the one thing I want to mention here is that now Pluto has retrograded back into Capricorn. So looking at the Capricorn ruled part of your natal chart, remember that Pluto first entered Capricorn in 2008. So it's been here for approximately 15 years. It dipped into Aquarius in March, was there for a couple months, and now it's going to be here until January 20th, 2024. What that means is the themes of Pluto, which can be death, power, obsession, rebirth, truth, those could all be up for reevaluation. A big thing with Pluto for me is power, personal power, power dynamics, power struggles. So especially if you have late degree cardinal placements, so let's say between 25 and 29 degrees of Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, or Libra, you will be the most affected. I know for me, my moon is in Aries in late degrees, and I woke up on Sunday with like a really strong headache. It just felt like it was going all the way down my head. I was like, oh no, this is so literal right now. So it can be also pain that can sometimes be affiliated with Pluto, or the sense of like feeling something very intense. So just be aware of that if you've been feeling that at the start of this retrograde. This retrograde is going to go until October, I believe. I believe it's October 11th, and the retrograde will go back into 27 degrees. So just be aware that, like I said, those late degrees are going to be hit the most. It's not a bad thing. It just means that these are going to be ways in the best manifestation possible for everyone with this Pluto retrograde. It can show you how far you have grown over the past 15 years, or what things you want to put more energy and effort towards to accumulate more power or more strength or more clarity. And again, with power, it can be ways that you are serving or using that power to be of beneficence to everyone around you. So take a look at your Capricorn rule chart, number one. Number two, look to any other placements that you might have in late cardinal or late earth signs, Capricorn, Virgo, Taurus. Those will be easier to work with Pluto. And that way you'll be aware of how you can use this Pluto retrograde. And another thing I want to mention for this entire week is now Mercury is in one of its home signs where it has very strong essential dignity in the sign of Gemini. And Mercury is basically making this applied sextile to Venus for most of the week. So what does that mean? One, I would look to the Gemini and Leo ruled houses of your natal chart to see where free-flowing, easy correspondence, commerce, pleasure can be taking place. This can manifest as like easy deals or savings on things that you want around pleasure and beauty. This could be easy correspondence for people that you want to connect with or be in collaboration with. If we're talking about Leo, this can be great ways for creative pursuits, creative projects. If you're wanting to submit your work, if you're in a creative field, and that's not just artists per se, like it could be in design or production or anything that you really want to promote beauty or something that is pleasurable to someone else, landscaping, all these things, right? Or it could be a way of you with romantic energy of switching things up now that Mercury is an immutable sign of trying different things or exploring different avenues, or even if you're wanting to pursue something more pleasurable, doing it in a different way that you haven't tried before, that could result in greater outcomes. For Monday in general, the moon is still in Aries, coming off that direct trine from Mars and Leo. So there's likely to be some initiatory action or something that you know you have to do, something that's going to get you excited. And if there's work that you feel like you have to do versus work that you want to do, this might be a good day to just get those things that need to get checked off the to-do list, or maybe things that you've been putting off, get those things done with all this strong fire energy being activated, and then you can just move towards what you need. The moon is also making this applied sextile to the sun, so there's likely to be a clear channel between your thoughts and your actions. This could also be one of those days where you just write down, like using air energy, your thoughts, your words, to say and write down what you want to get done. And then this fire energy can make that happen. I would also like, this is happening for me right now as well with this moon transit in Aries, is like, I know I need to do something, like the thought is very clear, and then I just do it. Like, I don't overthink things. I don't need to contemplate it. I just know it's kind of like every hour, like what I want, I just go forth and do it. So take that for what it is. I think it'll be very easy for you to initiate your thoughts throughout Monday. Now, Tuesday, the moon is finishing up in that late degree of Aries. So this can be what we just talked about with this Pluto activation in late Capricorn, a cardinal sign. And now the moon for everyone is going to be here. So if you really want to go a bit more intermediate and advanced with your astrology knowledge, you will see how this feels for you, depending on your time zone. It could be Monday or Tuesday. Now the moon is making that applied square to Pluto, how you are feeling in this realm, in specifically the Aries and Capricorn parts of your chart. For a more generalized energy, this could just be something that you're moving through emotionally, or it could be something that is causing you to be impatient or frustrated with that moon in Aries versus a square to Pluto, because Pluto in a Capricorn is these long withstanding structures or power dynamics, whether it's in family tradition, whether it's in corporate or your workplace, or just your own thoughts that you're trying to reprogram and move through. This, again, doesn't need to be bad. It just means, what do I need to do to attack or to move through this, or even just move through it emotionally so you don't feel like you're having this power or this weight hang over you. So this could, again, just be you voicing or you expressing something, because again, with the moon in Aries, she just wants to get it out, whatever that intense emotion that she's feeling, and then move on. It's not something that you have to harbor and hold on to throughout the entire day. And furthermore, the moon will be moving into Taurus midday on Tuesday, again, depending on your time zone. So with the moon moving into Taurus, where she's exalted, just know that perhaps for the first half of Tuesday, things might be a bit more intense emotionally, but that it'll end off with a very pleasant or favorable result. Is there anything else I want to mention there? No, it's just making sure that you can understand what this transit feels like, so that you don't have to hold on to it. It's more so it's like that pressure creates diamonds. And I'm just going to turn this alarm off on my phone. But that's interesting that this alarm went off at this time. So maybe I want to talk about this a bit more. This moon Pluto can also be related to parents or caregivers. So if you are a parent, and this can even be like if you're a parent to a pet, like if you love your pet, your dog, your cat, your rabbit, your snake, whatever pet you have, this could also be in that as well, as like how much energy, how much power you're exerting in different parts of your life. Like, let's say if your pet had an emergency, you need to take them to the vet, and your boss is like, no, you can't have this time off. You need to be at the office, find another way. What you're going to prioritize. This can also be emotional triggers from childhood that are coming up on Tuesday, because the moon, of course, can relate to the emotions, the bodies, or caregivers and parents. And if you are a parent, you might also be facing that power dynamic with your child. So just being aware of that on Tuesday. So if you're feeling a certain type of way, you know that it's going to pass, and it's likely to end in a very pleasant or favorable outcome, because the moon is going to end up in Taurus, which is kind of nice, because we don't always have that, where the moon is going through a really intense transit and then ends off in the best way possible, with the moon coming into the arms of Jupiter, which can give either foresight, higher knowledge, a greater belief that can help move through that pain and intensity. All right. Now, Wednesday, the moon is basically aspecting every single planet except Mercury and the sun. So just expect Wednesday to be intense or expansive in a lot of ways. So let's break this down one at a time. Moon conjunct Jupiter. This is quite nice in terms of just free-flowing energy, expansive, feeling really good in general, given that the moon is in a Venus-ruled sign. The moon is connected to the greater benefic. We're also in that phase right now where moon is in dark moon phase. So I don't want you to have to overwork or do a lot. I think that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday would be good for healing, for expanding your knowledge, for taking a step back and just recalibrating. And I know, depending on your work schedule and what's going on, it might be a bit more challenging to carve out that time. But this can even just be in your morning or evening routine of extending gratitude, of feeling the feelings that you're wanting to create. It's like how last week I was saying how we can use our words a lot because Mercury was in intense positions. Now, if you can tap into the feeling of what you're wanting to feel by the start of next week, when the moon is going to be in Cancer post new moon, it'll really be of strong service. So that would be my homework for everyone, including myself, is to tap into the emotional frequency of what you're wanting to attract starting on Wednesday. Moon conjunct Uranus. So shifting of energy. So if you felt a certain type of way on Tuesday when the moon was in Aries square Pluto, this might just be a complete 180 where you're feeling a lot better. And then we also have the moon making a square to Venus. And this isn't a bad thing per se. It's just probably more so of like, this is how I'm feeling. This is how I want to feel. What do I need to do to bridge the gap, given that Venus is very much in charge of beauty and pleasure, amicable relationships. And I don't want you to feel like you have to rush things, because with having 3 planets plus the North Node in Taurus, it's more so about taking things at your own pace. So if you want to fast forward, that's okay. But we're kind of in this part right now where we're being called just to slow down, relax, and allow the blessings to come to us. We don't need to overly work or grind or produce things to make things happen. Take the time to slow down as you need. And then we also have the moon sextiling Saturn, making that applied sextile to Neptune, which is going to cross over to tomorrow as well, Thursday. So it's just probably getting really clear and carving out the time. That's what I was making a point to. Like, this moon Saturn sextile is, if you don't feel like you have the time to maybe put more into your spiritual practice or into this homework, then it's like we need to find the time, because there's always time. It's kind of like for me, when I give clients homework for, like, let's just say, do this every day or do this for X amount of time, and they come back, it's like, oh, I had a really busy week, or I couldn't make time to figure this out. If you want something bad enough, you will always find the time. You will always find a way. And if you don't want it, you'll make an excuse. I feel like this can also be an energy that you apply to Wednesday. It's like, what do I really want? Am I making even 5, 10, 15, 30, 60 minutes in my day to make this happen? Yes or no? And if you don't have the time, that's okay. But then we can't necessarily be frustrated if we're not getting the results that we want, if we're not putting the time forth. I feel like that's a very Saturnine energy. It's a taskmaster. It wants you to have the discipline, the boundaries, and the time to become your best, to become a master in whatever you're pursuing, so that you have the fortitude and the resolve to carry out that energy without hesitancy. Okay. +1 for Saturn. Now, Thursday, the moon is still in Taurus, which is great. Remember, the moon is exalted here. We love when the moon is in Taurus. And the moon is now making a trine to Pluto. So this could also be an emotional breakthrough. This could be things being more clear. This could be better structures, power dynamics, or a result that makes you feel more comfortable, that makes you feel more at peace. This could also be you being like, I'm going to take Friday off. I don't need to be working on Friday. I just want to take things slow and to relax. See what comes in for you, because again, like, moon in Taurus is more of a slow, sensual vibe where she can just chill, have some snacks, sleep in. The moon is also making a sextile to Neptune, which is more so a creative energy where you can be in a relaxed state and allow this energy to come to you. If you don't have that opportunity, then making sure that you're in a place where you are carving out intentional time, like we said, to do the emotional work. But secondly, really address where you're putting forth the time, energy in your life to accrue or to obtain more power. Like, let's say you're at work and you are smashing it every day, every week, every month. Taking time to reflect and to ponder, given the moon is in her dark moon phase, taking time back for yourself to be retrospective, to be clear, again, in a retrograde sense with Pluto, where the power is in your life. And does that align with you right now? Are you wanting more power? Are you wanting less power and responsibility? There's nothing wrong with that either. Now that we're going back, it's like, I actually don't even want this position or this responsibility or to take care of X family members home when they go on that vacation this summer. I don't want that responsibility. I want to shift the power dynamic in a different way. And the one thing I'll say here as well is that the moon is still in direct influence here, this conjunction with Uranus. So be open to new emotional states. new forms of power, new ways for you to rest and rebalance the masculine and the feminine, like new ideas as well, because that can be very clear on Thursday. It's like, actually, I want this moving forward. So I'm going to talk to my partner or my family or my superior at work, or just be honest with myself with what I want. And that way things can shift for the better. And I just feel like with a dark moon phase or with a balsamic moon phase, it's also a really good time for us to be still, for us to do more of that spiritual work, whether it's tarot, astrology, pendulum work, being an intuitive channel. This is another plug. I mentioned this last week in my content, but Mysteries of the Dark Moon by Demetra George is a phenomenal book. I would highly recommend everyone to read it. I also think it should just be mandatory in like certain curriculums or certain university courses with regards to gender studies. That's another conversation for another time. But if you have the opportunity, I think it'll redefine our relationship with the dark moon phase and how we can use these 3 days before a new moon to our advantage. The last thing I'll say Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is that if you have a session with your therapist, your coach, your mentor, a healer, Reiki, whatever that is, that would go a really long way as well, especially given that we have the moon in aspect to Jupiter and Uranus. If you've been, even like sometimes we don't even feel like we're stressed or burnt out. And then once we have people hold space for us and they reflect back to us what they're feeling or what's coming up in their auric field, we're like, oh, that might explain the pain that I'm carrying here, why this part of my life is feeling a lot more intense right now. And then we actually do understand what we need to move through to get back to a place that we want, or even to elevate our current life, emotional state, etc. So if you have an opportunity to work with a healer or someone that can hold energetic space for you Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that would be great. Even like a massage, a facial, where you can release energy, where you can be still, where you can have something pleasurable happen to you. And if you don't have anything lined up and you're feeling called to, scheduling something of that nature Wednesday, Thursday, Friday would be of great benefit. And that can even just be meditating more, journaling more, including more self-care, spiritual practices in your regime. Now, Friday, moon conjunct Mercury. This is really strong as well, because again, kind of like what I was talking about on Thursday, there could be deep knowings or a thought or an idea that comes in when you are taking time to be still. Because remember, this is a moon conjunct Mercury during this dark moon phase. And depending on your time zone, the new moon is going to be happening on Saturday for almost everyone. But let's say you're in Australia, it might be happening on Friday, if I'm getting those time zones correct in my mind. If there's something that you're wanting to implement as well in this Gemini ruled part of your chart, there's likely to be either new thoughts, ideas, correspondence, or communication that comes in that you're going to be able to implement next week after that Gemini new moon. So just being open, I would be very curious on Friday. And if you are wanting something or needing something, that you can just state that out loud. And also, if we just go back a couple of days to Thursday, we have this Mercury-Saturn square, which can also be activated on Friday with the moon here. So with this, I want to talk about this a little bit as well, this Mercury-Saturn square, because it also speaks to us slowing down with the balsamic dark moon phase. As I said before, like when we sometimes make the excuse that we don't have time, that we're so busy, that's such a Mercury and Gemini thing, where there's so many things, there's so many arrows we need to fire, so many tasks we need to accomplish, like Hermes trying to go from Olympus to the underworld, back and forth, back and forth. And Saturn's like, we actually need to slow down to address our emotions here. And I think with Friday, when the moon arrives in Gemini, you are more apt or going to want to express your emotions to explain or to make sense of a delay or something that's been restricting you. And that also kind of plays in with this Pluto retrograde that we've been facing. So on Friday, it's also a good invitation just to be social. We now have the moon making a sextile to Venus, making that applied sextile to Mars as well. And I would also say this kind of came through intuitively as I was prepping for this. If you can be diligent and get major tasks out of the way throughout the week, maybe you can take a half day on Friday, or maybe you don't need to work as hard as on Friday. So you can be around people and just be social, be able to express how you're feeling, move through all of that to get to the new moon energy on Saturday. And one last thing here as well, how I always explain how it can manifest in different ways. You could also be the one that your friends or loved ones come to be verbose with, or to talk about what they've been going through. So again, if you don't have the emotional space to hold, maybe you put your phone on do not disturb, or tell your close friends and loved ones like, hey, I'm actually taking Friday for myself, just for a personal day. If I don't answer your text, it's not personal. Or if you don't want to put out the disclaimer, you don't need to. But sometimes I know that clients or friends have very close relationships with certain family members where they talk every single day, or they instantly answer their text messages. So if you need that time for yourself, if you're feeling that maybe Wednesday and Thursday that you just want Friday for you, that's a great day to do so. Also, given that Friday is Venus's day, if you wanted to engage in something Venusian, something relaxing, de-stressing, even if it's just like a bubble bath, a walk in nature, a nap, highly would recommend that as well. So Saturday is going to be that Gemini new moon for most of the world. So again, given that's not going to happen until the evening, there's still that major activation. And then we also have the moon and the sun, for that matter, making a direct square to Neptune. This also could be revealing where you're allowing certain temptations or illusions or addictions to get the better of you, especially maybe if you're very stressed or in your head a lot, and the way to break that stress is through a certain type of addiction. And that addiction could be work, that could be fitness, that could be all the other substances that sometimes people get caught up in. So with this new moon, it could be a new thought process or a new mercurial avenue, like therapy or journaling or breath work or something of that nature, that you are going to implement moving forward to help you overcome these stressors for certain struggles in your life. So I would just be aware of that. And that's kind of what we've been hinting at all week, is that if we can take time to slow down and be still, there's going to be resolution or ideas or avenues for us to expand, to get new forms of healing, and to feel a greater frequency, or to elevate our life moving forward. And then on Sunday, post new moon, we have the moon in her home sign of Cancer, making a sextile to Jupiter in Taurus. And this is even more beautiful because there's very strong mutual reception, because the moon is exalted in Taurus, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. This is one of the strongest days because we're just off of that new moon. The moon is in its home sign, sextiling Jupiter, where there's strong mutual reception. So on Sunday, and this can be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it doesn't have to be directly on Sunday, but I would put forth the action of what you're wanting to feel. You've had all week to tap into that, to do the homework. What is it that you need? Is it regular massages once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month? Is it to invest in a certain type of healing modality? Is it that you're going to start implementing a new spiritual regime that is going to benefit you? If you can initiate that under this new moon, with the moon in Cancer, by the time she gets to Leo, where the moon will be conjunct Venus and Jupiter squaring, pardon me, the moon will be conjunct Venus and Mars square Jupiter, things can happen very quickly for you. So to recap, the start of the week, there might be some impatience or frustration of wanting to go, reevaluating power dynamics within yourself and your external environments. Then once we get to midweek, when the moon is in Taurus, if you can take time to slow down, to tap into how you emotionally want to feel, that is going to shift things so that we can be in that still, receptive state to receive new ideas, new correspondence, new energies when the moon is in Gemini. So when we move through that new moon in Gemini, we can evaluate clearly what's holding us back, what's causing the stress, and what we can do to bring forth new life, new energy, new elevation once the moon moves in to Cancer on Sunday, moving into next week, which is rounding out Gemini season. Like I said, we are halfway through the year already. Now, for the astrology question of the week, I got this question a lot. I feel like I've answered it potentially in other contexts, but I want to go into a little bit more because sometimes in the DMs or just in general, when clients are going through a hard time, there's a notion of when will this end? When will this end? I've been going through this for X amount of years. I've been doing so much work. What's going on from an astrology standpoint? So just from a spiritual lens, this comes up in Conversations with God, which are great books to read if you haven't had the opportunity. But if we didn't go through painful, turbulent experiences, how would we know what amazing, free-flowing, easy experiences would feel like? If we had nothing bad to compare it to, we wouldn't know when something is so incredibly easy. I'm sure we've all had experience in the past where we've been maybe on a bad date or in a bad job, and it's like, this is not aligned. This does not feel good. My intuition was warning for me to not be in this. And then when we move into an environment where everything is easy and it feels great and we're welcomed warmly, we're like, this is a hard yes, boom, done. So when you're going through a difficult transit or a difficult time, it can sometimes be all of this field work, hours accumulated so that you know what not to do moving forward, or it's just so blatantly obvious when things are good to have that much more gratitude. Secondly, we all have Mars and Saturn being activated in a certain part of our chart. Like I remember when Mars was in Gemini, I had so many clients going through different things, whether it was problems with their finances, problems with their health, problem with their children, problem with their pets, like really intense things. And I think sometimes we can forget because our life might be in a very turbulent or intense state that other people's lives also have those same challenges. That doesn't negate what you're going through. It just means that we all have a Mars activation and a Saturn activation happening at once. I know personally that Mars transit in Gemini and that Mars retrograde was 10 times more challenging than my entire Saturn return. And I'm a little bit more biased given I'm a Saturn ruled individual. Saturn is in its domicile in Aquarius in my chart. And Mars and Gemini was making some intense aspects and activations in my chart. So that's also when I say in my content, when people try and villainize a Saturn return or a Pluto retrograde, that doesn't necessarily make sense based on your individual chart. The last thing is, with these activations, with certain things going on, there's obviously a lesson in that painful or contractive or maybe slower state that you have to go through. So to want to move through it fast or being like, when is this going to end? It's going to end when the lesson is learned. And that isn't defined by a day, a week, a month, a year, whatever that is. But if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and you're getting the exact same result, then something has to change. Obviously, we know this. And if you have been doing the work and you have been implementing change, then you're going to get a bigger payout. Because in my mind and how I've experienced in my life and how I've seen in clients and read multiple times in different texts and testimonials, is when people are going through such an intense contraction, the expansion is going to be as equal or greater. We know that there are these ebbs and flows to life. We know that different transits are getting activated every single day, every week, every month. And we also know that in the next 2 months that a lot of things are going to be shifting, astrologically speaking. We're going to have that South Node activation. We're going to be having Mars moving into Virgo. We're going to be having Venus retrograding. And again, we don't fear retrogrades, but I'm just saying that there's a notion of this too shall pass. There's a notion of transits always shifting in our favor. There's always, like within the contraction, there's going to be pleasurable moments, or there's going to be days that are better than others. So if you're moving through a hard transit, or if it's been a tough year or a tough 18 months, let's say if you're a fixed sign, or a past couple of years with having Saturn just moved out of Aquarius, just knowing that these things are getting better. There's always, again, in transit, a place where there's Jupiter and a place where there's Venus. So my last piece of advice is, if you're going through something intense right now, look at your natal chart and see which houses are ruled by Taurus and Leo, because Jupiter is going to be in Taurus until mid-May of 2024. Venus is going to be in Leo until the beginning of October this year. There's going to be places where expansion is had. There's going to be places where pleasure is had. So if you can focus on those parts of your chart, those parts of your life, it's going to make the more challenging aspects or parts of your life manageable, because you know there's sweet spots. Kind of like when I would visit my Baba and Guido, my grandmother and grandfather, they always had this one drawer in the kitchen that had like chocolate bars and candy. And every single time I would visit, there would always be that drawer. So I'd always get excited as a kid, being like, oh yeah, if I go this second drawer down, there's going to be goodies to be found. And that's what I kind of think of like with Venus and Jupiter. No matter what's going on in the rest of my chart, I was like, okay, where's Venus? Where's Jupiter? Are they making aspects to anything else in my chart? I know I can count on these kind of like benefic, kind of like comparing it to my Baba and Guido, these pleasurable aspects of my life that can help me through. It doesn't mean that's not still painful or intense in other parts of my life, but I don't necessarily want to focus on that all the time, because then you're just attracting more of it from a spiritual standpoint, that we can just lean on the goods to bring some sort of balance and levity from a day-to-day mundane standpoint. Okay, so that's all I got. Of course, I'll be posting the Gemini new moon workshop later in the week. Don't forget about the 2023 astrology guide that's now on a further sale if you want to increase your knowledge and bandwidth of astrology. And other than that, let me know in the comments if you have any further questions you'd like answered for the astrology question of the week, or anything else that's come up from a manifestation standpoint from last week or later on this week. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.